Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Saturday for the fourth webinar in the Kitten Care webinar series. If you've joined all four of them, then that's amazing. We've spent a month of Catterdays together, so I really appreciate everybody for participating so much in these. If you missed the other webinars, there were 3 webinars prior to this, and I hope you'll check them out. It's hours and hours of content about different things you need to know regarding kitten care. We had a webinar about taking care of bottle babies. There was a webinar about taking care of weaning kittens and helping get them adopted. And then last week we had a webinar all about kittens and health and keeping kittens healthy. All of those are available to watch in the recordings. So you can go to kittenlady.org/webinar and watch all of the recordings there if you missed those. This one will also be available afterwards to rewatch. And while you're at kittenlady.org/webinar, please remember to register for this webinar. The registrations give me access to your email so I can email you follow-up materials. And if you registered for the other ones, you probably saw I send some additional links, some additional PDFs, things that are helpful, some additional information. So if you go to kittenlady.org/webinar and you register for this webinar today, Feral Felines, do that in the next 24 hours and I will send you a follow-up with some additional information. This series has been sponsored by Royal Canin, and I'm so grateful to them for being such a wonderful partner. I have absolutely loved doing this with them, and I'm so grateful that they've helped really get this information out, not just to my community, but also to theirs. So thank you, Royal Canin, for being such a leader in this time and helping get all of this important information out about kittens and kitten care. As always with these webinars, you are invited and encouraged to ask questions. You can put questions in the chat wherever you are watching, and we'll be scooping up some of those questions. I'll be answering them at the end. And I just ask that you focus on today's topic, which is feral felines and helping kittens found outdoors. So let's begin. So quickly, if you don't know me, my name is Hannah Shaw, but I go by Kitten Lady. I have an advocacy project that is focused on taking care of and advocating for the most tiny and vulnerable felines, orphaned kittens, neonatal kittens like these guys. I have a couple books out. Tiny But Mighty is my 300 plus page resource that is all about kitten care. So I have an entire chapter about kittens and feral kittens and outdoors, what to do with cats outdoors in my book. So if this subject is interesting to you, definitely check out Tiny But Mighty. I also have my children's book, Kitten Lady's Big Book of Little Kittens. So if you know any young kids, or if you're young at heart and you are interested in a really fun picture book about fostering, I have that available. And finally, I am the founder of Orphan Kitten Club. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in California, but we do work all over the United States. We have grant programs, we have sterilization programs, and we have our nursery program. So obviously my life is obsessed with kittens. All that I do is think and care for these little kittens and think about the programs that really help them. And so today I'm really excited to talk about this subject because it is probably the most important thing that we can talk about, really. Right now we are at the beginning and middle part of kitten season. Kitten season, if it sounds cute to you, like there's kittens falling from the sky, sometimes it really does feel that way this time of year. Kitten season is when the weather is warm, and of course it depends on where in the world you are when your kitten season is and how long it is. Here in California, where I live, it is kitten season all year round. The weather's warm, cats are giving birth to large quantities of kittens, And those kittens are entering our shelter systems in a very large quantity. So this time of year is really not cute for animal welfare because we find so many kittens outside. So many kittens are coming into our animal shelters, more than we're often able to handle. So if kitten season sounds cute, please get involved. You'll find that, sometimes it actually can be a really difficult time of year, and all the more reason for us to be involving ourselves in their rescue and their advocacy. So because kitten season is such a stressful time in animal welfare, I think it's important for us to really look at where these kittens are even coming from. If you have a problem, it's important to start at the source. And so I think it's really interesting to look at data about where kittens really come from. In the United States, about 80% of kittens born every year are actually born outdoors. And I think that speaks volumes to kind of the issues that we have here in our country. At least we have a very educated community regarding spaying and neutering the cats in our homes, the cats who are our pets, who sleep on our couch or in our bed, and everybody knows that you should spay and neuter your cat, right? I don't have to tell you guys that. Everybody knows spay and neuter your cats and your dogs, but not everybody extends that to the cats who live outdoors in our community. So we have large quantities of kittens being born outdoors. I think it's very important that we kind of look at where these kittens really come from. And at my live talks, I always ask people to just shout out at me, where have you found a kitten before? Obviously, I wish we were all in a room together, but we're not. You can share any stories in the chat of where you've found a kitten before, but I'd love to hear, have you ever found a kitten outside? I asked the question on social media this morning, and I was surprised. I got hundreds of comments in the first hour of people who said, yes, I've found a kitten outside. And I think that this is why this talk is so important, because people find kittens outside. They really do all the time. So where are all these kittens coming from? This is an example of a litter that I had a few months ago. If you follow me, you know these guys. They were the ice cream kittens. And these guys, they came into the animal shelter because somebody found them outside in their backyard. And they scooped them up, brought them to the shelter. And then when we got them, we were just told that they were orphans. And that's really often the case is, I don't really know where they're from. I just know that they're orphans and they ended up at the shelter. And something that we've started doing is actually asking for the address of the person who found them. And in this case, with these little kittens, we were able to go to the address where these kittens were found. And I want you to really study their faces. Look at the faces of these little orange kittens, okay? Study their faces, and now I'm going to show you what happened when I went to the address where they were found. You ready? Who the heck is that? So, we love to go to these places and see that actually, wow, kittens are not just dropped off by a stork. They don't just emerge out of thin air. If there are kittens, pretty good chance that there's probably some cats, and some cats that probably look pretty similar to them. So I started collecting these images because I think the images are very powerful and they make a very strong statement. People don't always make this connection between kittens who are in shelters and cats who are outdoors, but the connection is undeniable. There's Cherry, who was one of the kittens from that litter, and here is a cat that we were able to help sterilize at the place that she was from. And, they're spitting image. Here's some more examples. Raina is a kitten who was found on a sidewalk. It was raining. Somebody found her, scooped her up, brought her to the shelter, and, we were told she was an orphan. Went back to the place where she was found, and who's that? Clearly, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree in this situation. Raina looks just like her mom, who was indeed a cat who was living outside. And one more example, Cider. This was a kitten I fostered about a year ago. I absolutely loved this little guy. He was found in the siding of a house. A dog, found that there was a kitten who had gotten into the outdoor siding, the panel on the side of the house. And, they said, oh, I don't know, this kitten was just there by himself. He's an orphan. But who's that? We went back and we found a cat that looks just like him, right? So I think it's so important for us to make this connection. the vast majority of kitten rescue starts somewhere like this. And, a lot of the time we get the story. In this case, the story I was given was, oh, these kittens were born in an herb garden and they're orphans. So I actually wanted to see that herb garden, and I went back, and it was actually succulents, but that's okay. We did name the kittens after herbs. But this was a picture of actually where these kittens were found. And there's Sage. He was one of the kittens that was found there. And when people ask the question, where are all these kittens coming from? The kittens in the shelter, where are they coming from? The answer much of the time is they're coming from community cats who live outdoors in our community. So I think that we can't have this conversation without first having a conversation about who community cats are, because community cats, they can be kind of invisible to a lot of us. A lot of people don't even realize there are community cats in their neighborhood. So who are community cats? Who am I talking about? Community cats are free roaming, outdoor, unowned cats. Some people call them feral cats. I don't really use the term feral cats to describe all of the cats who are living in the community, because feral is really a behavior. Feral really describes the behavior of being unsocialized to humans, but community cats is a more encompassing term. It really includes all of the cats who live outdoors in our communities, whether they are socialized or not. These cats are part of our community. They have food resources. That's why they're in the area that they are. Sometimes that resource might be one person, 2 people, 10 people. The cat in this picture, he was a community cat that I was caring for, and I named him Rufus. And then I went there to feed him one day, and someone else was feeding him, and I said, "Oh, you met Rufus?" And they said, "Oh, that's not Rufus, that's Dimitri." And that's how I realized, oh, this cat is actually very resourceful. He has multiple feeders and he has multiple names. These cats are highly adapted for life outdoors. They're bonded to their community. They know where their resources are. And there's a large volume of these cats outdoors in the United States. At least we have, it's hard to do a census on community cats, but it is believed that there's about 50,000 community cats in the United States at this time. Now, these cats have been living outside alongside humans since the advent of agriculture. Cats have been kind of living in symbiosis with humans, for purposes of rodent abatement at first, and then, they kind of spread throughout the entire world. And, I consider them to be the original cat. Domestication and the concept of having indoor-only cats is actually a newer concept. So we still do have a lot of these cats who are, not socialized to humans, who don't live in human homes, who do live outdoors in our community. And unfortunately, because they're typically unsocialized or under-socialized, a lot of them are not going to be candidates for adoption, which means that when they enter an animal shelter, they're not really a cat that we're going to often be able to place in an indoor-only home, for instance. These cats are not often going to be candidates for that, so they need a different kind of program. Where do they come from? Typically, they come from other community cats. So left unaltered, these cats will breed and create these family groups called colonies. And that's where pretty much all of my kittens come from, is from colonies. They're found outdoors. People don't realize there's a colony right there. And those kittens come in. And so if the kittens are not scooped up, then they grow up and they become community cats. Where do they live? They tend to live around places that humans live, because we, create a lot of resources for cats, whether we mean to or not. We create food sources, shelter sources, just, by virtue of the urban areas that we create and the rural areas where we congregate around farms and houses. We do create a lot of resources that cats will access and create colonies around. So there are a large volume of community cats. Maybe you even know some in your community. But what happens is that we have really good Samaritans, so people who want to help a kitten. They find a kitten like this little guy Tidbit. he was found outside and somebody really wanted to help him, but didn't realize that he probably was part of a larger issue going on in that neighborhood. And so he was put into a cardboard box and brought inside. And unfortunately, now he's at a disadvantage because, a shelter or even a foster home is not going to be able to care for him in the same way that mom can. And on the other side of that, mom is left behind to keep breeding and have more babies just like him. So it sort of feels like this endless treadmill that we'll never get off of when we have kittens coming in and we're not doing anything to stop that cycle. And we're removing kittens from, mom, who is an important figure in their life at this time. So I think, it's challenging to quantify what's going on because we don't have great data. We do have some data in the United States. There's a project called Shelter Animals Count, and this is the data that I used in my book. This is just a collection of shelters, and these are the feline intakes for a collection of shelters. And you can see the largest number of feline intakes with this data set is kittens, so up to 5 months, who were stray or at large, so outside. So you can see that number is actually twice as much, more than twice as much as kittens who were relinquished by owner. And I think that it's important for us to look at data because data is how we know how to make good policy decisions, how to make good program decisions, how to know where we really need to put our efforts. And clearly, we have a huge issue with kittens outside when the number one feline intake category for an animal shelter is not people surrendering their cats, people surrendering their kittens. It's people bringing kittens in from outside. And you don't have to look at data to know this. If you work in an animal shelter or if you work in animal welfare, you know that, this time of year, people are well-meaning and bringing kittens in just anything you can imagine. Boxes, laundry baskets, you name it. Kittens are coming in and people are saying, I found them outside, here you go. So this is a big issue, and I wanted to kind of set the stage for why it is so important to have this conversation. These are big picture problems. The small picture, if we zoom in, is that there are kittens on the street who are potentially in need of rescue or care, and we want to address that right away. We do want to address that right away. We want to have a solution for those kittens who need us today. But there's also this bigger issue going on, which is that there are groups of cats on that street who are giving birth to lots of kittens. So we don't want to be so focused on today that we forget to plan for tomorrow. We want to think about the small picture issue and the big picture issue at the same time. So these are our big picture problems, and our big picture solutions are going to be, for the kitten, we're going to have to know how to address the specific needs depending on the situation. And then for the cats who are living in that community, we want to have sterilization programs that ensure that these cats are, not going to be giving birth to more and more and more and more kittens. Now, for this talk, we're going to be focusing on the kitten side of this, but I have to set this whole thing in context and say this is really two parts, right? We have to focus on the small picture and the big picture. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to really zoom in on those found kittens and what do we do with them when we find them outside. So this is really a question I get literally daily, many times a day on social media, and even with my own friends several times a week, somebody will contact me and say, I found a kitten outside, what do I do? And the challenging thing is that it's not that simple. It's not like you can just say, oh, if you find a kitten outside, do this. There are some charts that exist where people have tried to make sort of flow charts of if this, then that. But it's really challenging to give like a one sentence answer to what to do if you find a kitten outside, because like so many other things in animal welfare, it's really situational. It really depends. And so as advocates, we have to kind of elevate ourselves and not just look for a quick solution, but really understand the entire issue and how to make those proper judgment calls depending on the situation. So in preparing for this talk, I was thinking, how can I explain this in a way that really does it justice? Because I don't want to just show like a little flow chart. I want to really talk about how to actually assess these situations thoroughly so that we're doing the best during each situation. So what I came up with was a method that I am hoping will be useful to all of you. I'm hoping it will be useful also if you work in animal shelters or if you're somebody who's having to assess these kinds of situations very often. The method I'm calling the CASA method. And the CASA method basically is when somebody's asking, should I bring this kitten into my CASA? You are going to have this nice little mnemonic device for knowing what kinds of questions to ask them, because we want to really know that this depends on several factors. It's not just if there's a kitten outside, do this. So we want to ask some questions to ourselves or to the person who found the kitten about their condition, about their age, about the specific situation that they're in, and about our abilities, or the person who's found them, their abilities to help. Because all of these four things kind of come together, and you are going to do a different thing depending on the condition, the age, the situation, and the abilities of the person to help, what resources are available. So I want to quickly kind of go through what I mean by each of these things, and that's going to set the tone for the rest of this talk. Condition means, what does the kitten look like when you find a kitten outside? Are they in good condition or are they in bad condition? A kitten who's in good condition is very likely to have a mom caring for them. Like I said, these kittens were not dropped off by a stork. We are going to assume that they probably have a mom, especially if they are looking like they are chunky and alert. They are well fed. They're clean. They're not in any kind of distress. They're not, screaming and calling out for help. This kitten on the left is a kitten that came into me, that day. And this kitten is very clean looking. She's very chunky. She is probably was just with her mom. And now the kitten on the right is a kitten who came into me who's in bad condition. This kitten is dirty, covered in waste. He's visibly underweight. If a kitten is in distress or medical crisis, those are the situations where we're going to assume that probably more likely they are actually a true orphan. We're going to want to intervene in those situations more quickly than in a situation where a kitten is clearly in good condition and has somebody taking care of her. I was just reminded that I forgot to put up a very important thing, so I'm going to interrupt myself because I forgot we have a kitten cam, and the kittens have fallen asleep. So I apologize. They were playful earlier, and here they are falling asleep. I don't know if you can see them. They fell asleep. There's spinach and chickpea, but we'll pop them up into the corner. I'm sorry, guys. I got so excited to talk about all this that I forgot to put the kitten cam up. That's the real reason you guys want to watch, not to hear me talk about a kitten's condition. Just kidding. I hope that you're here for the kitten cam and for the education. Certainly we can have both fun and education in one place. And hopefully those guys will wake up in a little bit. They were so playful just a minute ago, and now, of course, they're asleep. So that's how it goes. Okay, so assessing a kitten's condition, very, very important. Because, if a kitten looks like they're in really good shape, somebody's been taking care of them. And it's probably not the local neighborhood raccoon. It's probably their mom. So let's assume that, mom is likely there. We're going to, be a little bit more mindful of trying to reunite them with that mom. The next thing we're going to ask is about the kitten's age. Helping somebody figure out what they should do, knowing that kitten's age is really one of the most important things you can ask. And the ages sort of fall into these three categories. So you don't need to know exactly the kitten's age, but you need to know, are they in the 0 to 5 week category? Kittens who are 0 to 5 weeks are going to be dependent on their mom for nursing. They're going to be pretty uncoordinated, so they're not going to be like climbing and jumping as easily. If they're on the younger end of that, they might even have their eyes closed. These kittens will have baby blue eyes if they're 0 to 5 weeks old, and they'll probably be seen nursing on mom. So if you have a kitten who's in that category, it's important to identify that. Now, if they're in the 5 to 12 week category, that's kind of our next section of kittens that we'll be talking about. And these kittens are going to be those who are playful and coordinated. They can walk, they can run, they have all of their teeth, and they are able to eat wet food. But these kittens are going to be more in the 1 to 3 pound range. These kittens are going to be probably still hanging out around mom, maybe doing some nursing, but also eating independently, coordinated, and playful. And then right around the 12-week mark, we want to be able to identify that too. These are our kittens who are about 3 pounds or more. They're definitely going to not be nursing. They're going to have a proportionate body, so they look like a cat, or a lanky body, so that lanky teen body. So knowing the kitten's age is very important because we're going to treat these situations differently depending on their age. And in general, we're going to have these categories of these tracks that we're going to get those kittens on depending on their age, but we'll go way in depth on all of this. But in general, we're going to be thinking about reuniting those 0 to 5 week olds with mom. We're going to be thinking about socializing those kittens in the middle category. And then our 12-week plus kittens, we're going to be thinking about sterilizing them and making sure that, if these older kittens and these young cats are living outside, that they are not contributing to the population. But again, we'll talk about all of this in great detail. Right now, we're just doing the high level of what is that CASA? What are those 4 things that we are thinking about? Their condition, their age, and then their situation. Every situation is going to be different. It's up to you to use your judgment. Are they in a safe situation or are they in an unsafe situation? A safe situation is one where the mom is there. Perhaps they have a caregiver who is feeding them every day and monitoring them, who can intervene if something goes wrong. They have food and shelter. The kitten on the left here is a kitten who was at a place where I was doing some sterilizing projects with cats outdoors, and this kitten was in a backyard and was with the mom, also had a caregiver, also had shelter, somebody caring for them every day. This is a lot less urgent for us to intervene and scoop that kitten up because they are in a safe situation versus an unsafe situation. If a kitten is in an area where no one's caring for them, they don't have their mom, they're exposed to hazards or extreme weather, it's a blizzard, it's a rainstorm, they're maybe on a construction site. These are unsafe situations, and so we're going to factor that into what we're going to do. And it's important to ask these questions. What's the situation that they're in? And then the last thing is, what do you have the ability to do? Our abilities do impact what the right decision is because we all have limited capacities, limited resources. All of us have different things that we can contribute both individually and then also as a community. So it's important to ask yourself some questions. Are you able to effectively provide foster care, or is someone able to effectively provide foster care? And by effective, I mean, can you really open your home and give that kitten the type of services that they're going to need to have the outcome that you're wanting to give them? Or is your local organization able to do that? Do they have the capacity to handle this case? It really depends, because sometimes we're going to be in situations where we can't do everything that maybe we wish we could. This picture is from a situation many years ago where, there were a large quantity of cats living indoors and outdoors somewhere, and we had to kind of make a decision about, okay, what do we realistically have the ability to do here? And in those situations, you're sort of doing triage. What's the outcome that's going to save the most lives here? And so I think it's very important for me to stress that you need to work within your resources. Every community has different capabilities, and I know that we have a global audience that watches these webinars, and I do a lot of international work. I know that resources are not the same in every country or even in every part of this country. So it's important to say, work within the resources that you have. We don't want to be comparing ourselves to other communities as much as we want to be really working with what we have. And then also working with what we have right now, because I don't have to remind you guys, but we're in the middle of a global pandemic right now. A lot of resources are limited. Some services are cut at this time or have decreased. Spay-neuter access is difficult right now. So we're having to make different judgment calls about our abilities, based on the fact that our resources have changed recently. So all of that is to sort of set the stage for the rest of this discussion, because these are all of the things that we need to be taking into consideration with every single case. There is this concept that Million Cat Challenge came up with, and I love it. And with their permission, I wanted to just quickly mention the superhighway concept. So the superhighway is sort of the idea that we have this one path that we're going to start to set these animals on, depending on kind of their age and disposition. We're going to assume that a cat is on a certain path, but every superhighway has exits. So while you're on that highway, you're watching the road and you're kind of taking into consideration all these different factors so that you can take an exit at any time. So every single guideline that I'm sharing is only a guideline. It's not a firm rule. Every case is case by case. So you use your judgment, keep your eyes on the road, make your plans sort of in the moment as you are assessing whatever the specific case is that you're working on. Okay. That's a lot to say up front, and now we're going to actually talk about what to do in all of these situations, but it's so important to say, that we have all these different things we need to consider. So now let's really dive into that under 5 week category. What do we know about kittens under 5 weeks? We know that they are going to be dependent on mom, right? These kittens are not able to eat independently. They really are dependent on their mom. And how do I know the kittens in these pictures are under 5 weeks? Well, I can see that they don't have all their teeth. One of them has their eyes closed. They have those little ears that make them look like a bear cub. These guys they look like they're a pound or less. These are our under 5 week kittens. And if you see a kitten like this, really the first thing we want to be thinking is reuniting them with mom whenever it is possible and safe to do so. So what does that actually look like? Well, we have to locate mom. And the first thing that I will say is a lot of the time mom is not there because you are there. If you're there, then mom is probably across the street looking at you going, I can't wait until that person leaves so I can go back to my babies. So please don't assume that there's no mom just because you're standing next to some kittens and the mom is not visible. Mom also has a very high need for caloric intake while she's nursing, so she might be off hunting or searching for food for herself. So please don't assume that kittens have been orphaned unless they are in that really bad condition. We're going to watch from a distance. Give enough distance between you and the kittens that you might actually be able to see mom. Another really important thing is just to talk to people, talk to neighbors, knock on doors, ask, hey, I found some kittens. Have you seen any cats in the neighborhood? And neighbors really are a good source of information. They oftentimes will be able to tell you where they see cats hanging out. You can also attract the mom with stinky and high-calorie wet food. So, get some very aromatic foods. Wet food is really great. Some cats are more drawn to the kibble, so try different things. But, putting out food is always a good way to attract cats and to see who's in the neighborhood. Another thing that you can do is if you have your kittens in a little box or in a safe area, you can create a ring of flour around them. So you take flour, like for baking, and you put it around the kittens. And then when you return, you might see some paw prints in that flour, which will show that the mom was coming and going. And then the last thing, this is not something that I do often, but if you really are in a pinch, I've actually used this method to reunite orphaned wildlife with their moms. You can keep a recording of babies on hand and play it loudly, and mom might actually hear them from far away. So if the mom has, if you think the mom has misplaced a kitten, maybe she was walking with her kittens and one of them dropped, maybe helping her be able to hear them by playing a loud sound on repeat might help her come and reunite with them. So these are some tips for locating the mom, but when do we actually wait and when do we not wait? Well, we want to wait for mom if they are in good condition and they're under 5 weeks old, which means, they are dependent on her, but they look pretty good and they look like they probably have her. They're not in immediate danger. They are healthy. They're well fed. They aren't dehydrated. They don't have signs of illness. Of course, we are not going to delay helping those kittens, and we're not going to wait for mom if they're in really bad condition or if they're in an unsafe situation and they are under 5 weeks old. So they're lethargic, they're unresponsive, they're filthy. Sometimes, sadly, you might find kittens where some of them have already passed. In these situations, it is okay to intervene right away, scoop them up. You don't need to wait for mom in those situations. But we also want to try to reunite them by trapping the mom if we can. So how do we do that? Well, you can see here what I'm doing is I have a carrier that I've put the babies in, and then I have a trap with some bait at the back of it. So I'm putting both food as bait and also babies as bait. And I'm gonna try to catch the mom. And the reason I'm gonna try to catch the mom is so that I can reunite them in foster care together. So, in some situations, it might make sense for us to take the whole family into a foster home. So I wanna show you some tips for baiting a trap with food and also for baiting a trap with babies. So here's how you bait a trap with food. Your baiting traps, I highly recommend that you put a large amount of bait at the very, very back, as far back as possible. You want them to step on the trip plate. But I also recommend putting some tiny little crumbs at the front. This is a really good incentive to them because they can smell the food, but once they taste it, they're not going to be able to resist walking towards the back. So you'll see when I trap, I will leave a little trail and the cat will come up and eat a small bit, see the amount in the back, and then walk right back there and set off the trap. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken some very stinky wet food. I put it at the back of the trap, but I also put a couple bites at the front of the trap. And that is how I bait a trap for enticing any cat to go into a trap. But there's also something you can do where you can trap the mom using the babies as bait. And unfortunately, some people will actually put the babies in the trap. I don't recommend doing that. The babies can definitely get hurt like that. But what you can do is actually put the babies at the back of the trap in a carrier and then cover the entire thing in a towel. So it sort of creates a look of a tunnel effect. The mom is going to want to go towards the back of the trap to see if she can access those babies. So in this video, what you're going to see is I've found some babies in a bush. I'm going to put them on a heat pad in a carrier, and then I'm going to see if I can catch their mom. Okay, there's the babies.
Mommy.
Okay. They are very, very young. They do look like they're about a day to 2 days old. So this is our setup. We've got our babies back here, and they have a heat pad to keep them warm while they're not with their mom. Trap here, a little bit of food in it. We're hoping she's gonna go in here. We'll see what happens. So the mom sees her babies. She wants to go in and get them. Got her, yeah! Got her. Okay. All right. Okay. So I was able to catch the mom, and that is a very good feeling when that trap goes off and you know that now the babies and the mom are going to get to be together. So there's the mom. She obviously is a very feral cat, but I absolutely love her spirit. I love that face she's making. You can foster a feral mom and babies. And this is obviously going to be the safest bet if you have a situation where the animals are not really in a safe situation, but they do have their mom. If we can trap the whole family and bring them indoors until the kittens are weaned, then that is a great thing to do. So what do you need to know about fostering a feral mom? Well, first of all, fostering a feral mom is just about the easiest thing that you can do because mom takes care of the babies and you feed mom, but mom doesn't really want to hang out with you too much. So you just go in there and feed mom several times a day, make sure her litter box is clean, supervise, make sure you're weighing and monitoring the kittens daily. But really for those first weeks of life, mom does all the work and you just kind of supervise and make sure everything's going okay. Once the kittens are weaned, we do want to get them away from their mom so we can socialize them and mom can be spayed and she's going to be eager to get back to her colony. So please, make sure that mom has free access to food. When a mom is lactating and nursing her babies, you're going to give her kitten food. You're going to give her fresh water and a litter box. And you can use like a large dog crate, a mesh crate like the one in this. And, you know, it's really just a little nesting box where they can take care of their babies for those first weeks of life. Remember, no one can care for a kitten like a mama can. You know, I've been doing kitten care for 11 years, and try as I might, I will never be as good at it as a mom cat is. They just have what it takes. They're really, really good at caring for these little babies. You know, they have the nutrition that the kittens need. They keep them warm. They keep them so clean. You know, we really want to keep them with mom whenever possible. And these are the babies of that mama. And you can see that they just look beautiful. And, you know, once they were old enough to eat on their own, she was able to return to her colony spayed, so she's not going to have any more babies. And this cat, you know, she has somebody caring for her. She was giving birth to babies actually in that bush behind her, was where I pulled them out. So now it's a really beautiful thing that she's not going to, you know, have any more babies in her community. It's kind of a full circle solution. And so you can see on her ear there, she has her ear tip, which is a sign that she has been spayed. When you see a cat outside with an ear tip like that, you know that that cat has been through this program. They're sterilized. They're not going to be popping out babies in bushes. So no more buns in the oven. All right. Now, in some cases, you might not have the ability to take the family in. And this is what I'm talking about when I say abilities and resources. In some cases, maybe you don't have an abundance of foster homes, or you personally are not able to take in that entire family. You know, if that's the case, then sometimes you can do what's called a kitten watch. Kitten watch is you're just watching over the family outdoors or in the area that they are until the kitten is old enough to be brought in for socialization. So this is appropriate if a kitten is in a safe situation, they're in good condition, they have their mom, they have some shelter, they have somebody who can watch over them, you know, and these situations, we might choose not to trap the whole family and bring them in, but rather to let mom care for her babies out in the field, and then bring them in later. So that's exactly what was happening in this situation. My friend had some kittens born in her barn, and she was like, wow, I don't know where these kittens came from, but I guess a neighborhood cat came and decided to use her barn as a maternity ward. And I went over and looked at the kittens, and they looked like they were in good shape. Mom had really chosen a nice spot for them. Mom was there. Here she is. And, you know, in this situation, they were in a safe situation. It didn't really have the urgency necessary to warrant, you know, bringing the whole family in and putting mom through having to be in foster care. So we decided, you know, this is a good situation. We're going to let mom care for her babies in the barn until they're old enough. And then once those kittens are of an appropriate age to be separated from mom, 5 weeks plus, they're weaned. We brought them in, and there's her 4 little black babies, and I fostered them about a year ago. And, you know, mom was able to be spayed, so she's not having any more babies in the barn. So this is really what we want to be thinking about. I keep saying, you know, like there's that 2-prong approach, but in terms of whether you take the family in or not, it really depends on your abilities and about the specific situation. Now, if mom doesn't return, then the new mama is you. You know, if you try everything you can to get the mom and the babies back together, and then you find that mom is really not returning, or if you're in a situation where the kittens are in bad condition or in a dangerous situation, then yeah, we're gonna scoop them up, and the new mama is gonna be you, which means you have to learn about orphan kitten care. And that's why I recommend watching the first webinar in this series. It was called Caring for Itty Bitty Bottle Babies, and that's really appropriate for those situations where we can't reunite kittens under 5 weeks with mom. Okay, so let's move on to 5 to 12 weeks. Kittens, 5 to 12 weeks, what do we know about them? We know that if they're outdoors, they're likely to exhibit unsocialized behaviors. You know, at this age, these kittens are going to be pretty coordinated. They're going to have their teeth. They're going to be, you know, wanting to climb and get around and hunt and do all of the stuff that little micropanthers do. But if they have not been exposed to people in a large quantity by this time, then they're likely to be unsocialized. They're not going to be comfortable around people. So what do we want to do? In general, our general approach is going to be to scoop them up and socialize them. So these kittens are a good age to come into foster care. If they can be placed in an appropriate setting where they can be socialized for adoption, then they're the perfect age to do that. Of course, remember, we're also going to sterilize the family. So we're not just going to scoop up the kittens and say, see you later, mom and dad. I'll come back next time you pop out babies, because, you know, we don't need them to keep popping out more babies for us to save. So we're going to sterilize the family. We're going to scoop and socialize the kittens at this age. In general, that's what we're going to be thinking. Now, with feral kittens, please be very cautious. Don't touch them with your bare hands. I know a lot of people think, well, the kitten's small, I can probably just pick him up. But unfortunately, a lot of the feline bites that we see are actually from kittens, because most people know not to, you know, try to wrestle a feral cat in an alleyway, but when it comes to kittens, people assume that it's safer to pick them up than it actually is. If you pick up a kitten who is feral, they're likely to try to bite and scratch and defend themselves. So please use a trap whenever possible. If you have access to a trap, that's always the safest bet. If no trap is available, you can use gloves. If no gloves are available, this is the thing. You know, I say use a trap or gloves, but to be honest, I know you guys, if you're watching this, you're probably like me. And if you're like me, when you're in an emergency situation, you're not going to go, oh, I don't have a trap or gloves. You're going to try to pick up the kitten. So what I want to say is use something. Do you have a blanket in your car? Take the blanket out and scoop them up with the blanket. Do you have a sweatshirt on? I've caught many kittens like that. I take my sweatshirt off and scoop them up with it. The important thing is please protect your hands, protect your skin. If you grab this kitten and they bite you, that's not just bad for you and your skin, that's also going to have negative implications for the kitten, because if they bite you, they're going to have to go on quarantine. It can be a whole ordeal. You know, it can be dangerous to get bit by a kitten. So let's avoid that. For our sake and theirs, please don't touch a kitten outside with your bare hands. Trap, gloves, blanket, sweatshirt, some kind of barrier between you and the kitten. Remember that socialization is a spectrum. So socialization is just the behavioral quality of being comfortable around humans. And it's a spectrum, just like any other personality trait or behavior is. So it's not like there's just, you know, unsocial cats and social cats. There's a lot of in between here. And so the socialization of a kitten is going to really vary depending on what types of experiences they've had with humans. And the idea is that we're trying with this age group to get them from unsocialized to socialized. So let's watch a little video about what it means to be feral.
The term feral is defined as in a wild state. This is a behavioral quality having to do with the socialization of the animal. So feral is not a breed or a species of cat, it's simply a behavioral characteristic. If a cat is feral, it just means that they're not socialized to humans. Feral does not mean vicious or even confrontational. In fact, feral cat behavior tends to be avoidant instead of aggressive. Feral cats will actively avoid humans and only become aggressive if cornered, because feral cats are uncomfortable with people. They aren't mean, they're just unsocialized. The antonym for feral is tame. A tame cat is one who's comfortable with human interaction, such as touching or being in a small space with a human, just like your pet cat at home.
Okay, so again, there's this whole spectrum between feral and tame, but what these words really mean when we say unsocialized and socialized is, feral and tame behavior and the whole spectrum in between. So how do we know if a kitten is socialized or unsocialized? Well, here's a little chart that can give you some ideas. If a kitten is vocalizing, purring, meowing, they seem relaxed when you approach them. They seem comfortable. If their tail is upright and they're kind of rubbing up against something, these kittens are probably going to be exhibiting more social behaviors. Their pupils look normal. Their ears are upright. Their fur is flat and smooth, versus an unsocialized kitten. If you see a kitten and they are growling or more likely silent, they might hiss or pop when they are approached. If they're tense and cowering, that's what I see a lot with kittens, is they try to make themselves very low to the ground, and then they poof out their fur so they look a little bit more intimidating. Their ears might go flat to their head, their pupils might be dilated. These kittens are going to be exhibiting unsocialized kitten behaviors. But remember, all kittens are born feral. Every kitten is born unsocialized to humans because they don't know humans. So all of them are born feral, and then they become social over time. This is my favorite video to show to exhibit that, because this is a literal one-day-old kitten. This kitten was just born. His eyes are closed, his ears are folded. He can't see me or hear me, but he can smell me, and he's never smelled a human before. So he is gonna try with all of his might to scare me off because he doesn't know who I am. So check this out. All I'm doing is putting my hand in front of his face so he can smell me and watch his reaction. That's a hiss. So he's letting me know, hey, I'm not into you. I don't know who you are. I'm, letting you know I'm gonna be very intimidating. Obviously not very intimidating. He doesn't even have teeth. But kittens are born wary of any new situation, including a human. Of course, that kitten grew up in a human home and within hours was totally used to humans. But these things take time. Now, the socialization window is one of the most important things that I'll be discussing today, because it's very important to understand that socialization really takes place in the early weeks of life. So between 5 and 12 weeks, that's really the time that is optimal for socializing these kittens. And some people set that window at even younger, and I think it really is case by case. But 12 weeks, I think, is definitely the upper limit of what I would say is kind of this period in which kittens are very malleable and very quick to socialize. During this time, you're going to find that you can really help a kitten adapt quite quickly using proper socialization techniques, which I'm going to teach you now. But let's learn about what the socialization window is all about.
Behavior is linked with experience, and those who have a good experience within that window will behave with trust and affection. This is the time during which kittens are weaning. They are biologically predisposed to accept change during this time. As their mom starts to push them away from nursing, they're looking for their next lunch ticket. And if they begin to associate humans with food, they'll easily warm up to us. That's why so much of the feral kitten socialization process is about using food to incentivize kittens to accept human interaction. So a kitten like Shish may be very hissy, terrified of humans, and on her way to becoming a feral cat. But when we intervene during this critical window, we can easily turn her into a friendly cat. After weaning, the socialization window begins to rapidly close. That makes sense, because if humans haven't given kittens a reason to accept us yet, why should they accept us now once they already know how to eat on their own? So socialization is a learned behavior, and it is learned young.
Okay, so as you can see, really the malleability of these kittens is dependent on the age frame that they're in. So time is really of the essence. And this is one thing that I see a lot. I have, even this week, I had a friend who texted me and said, there's some kittens in a yard and, what can I do? And she sent me an image, and those kittens were about 7 weeks old. And I said, time is of the essence. You cannot wait. If your plan is to socialize those kittens, you need to go trap them right now. This is a little duo that I had a couple years ago, and they came to me in a cardboard box, and I opened the box and they were just popping like popcorn, very, very hissy, but they were right in that socialization window. So within mere days, I was able to take these kittens and make them look like that. So you can see it's a really rewarding and fun thing to do with kittens. If you get them during that socialization window, you can really help them warm up with the techniques that I'm going to teach you. So how do you get set up for a feral foster? The first thing is, please ensure that they are an appropriate age for socialization. I know, that Maybe you want to take in a kitten who might be a little older. We'll talk about that. But I highly recommend focusing, if you're going to do feral fostering, on that socialization window. That's where you're going to have the most success. You want to keep them in a contained space, something that is kitten proof, and something that you're going to be able to actually access them in, because you need to be able to work with them, and they're going to want to avoid you. So you don't want to let them roam freely in your house. If you let a feral kitten roam freely in your house, I can't promise you're not going to get a new ceiling cat, okay? These kittens will try to get away from you, and you might end up with a cat who lives under your couch for the next 5 years. That's not what we want. We want our kittens to be in a small, safe space where we can actually work with them. So if they're in a small room, please don't ever give them access to something like beds and couches where they can hide underneath. We don't want them to be hiding. Giving them a cozy hideaway, like the little strawberry beds that you can see here, which my kittens have totally crushed. That is a good thing to give to a kitten, because it gives them that feeling of safety. And it's not that we don't want them to feel safe. We do want to give them a place where they feel safe, but we want them to be contained, where we can actually work with them and where they are kind of forced to see us and hear us throughout the day. Okay. Now, the biggest thing to know about the socialization process is that mealtime is socialization time. So if you're committing to taking on a feral foster, you need to know that every time they eat, you're going to be working with them. And that means no free feeding. If you attended my other webinars, you probably heard me saying that with kittens, it's good to give them free access to food, but not in the case of feral kittens. That is the exception, because we don't want these kittens to think that they are just finding food on their own. We want them to know that food equals humans, humans equals food. We are one and the same. We're the ones providing that to them, so then they actually start to like us, right? Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna break it down, and then we're gonna watch a video. So the first time that you do your socialization session, all you're gonna do is place the food in front of the kitten and back away. And you need to back away as far as it takes for the kitten to actually eat in front of you. So if you have to walk 10 feet away for the kitten to start eating, then stand 10 feet away from them. And then while you're standing 10 feet away from them, you just want to talk to them. And you can just say, "Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm going to be socializing with you today. Hope you enjoy your meal," and just keep talking to them. Stay visible throughout the entire meal. They're not going to be happy that you're there. They're not going to be happy that they're listening to you, but they are going to be happy about the food. So let them eat their meal, and then once they're done with that meal, pick it up. You don't want to leave them alone with the food because, again, we want to be using mealtime as socialization time. So that's going to be our first session. Over the next couple sessions, you're going to try to stand closer and closer to the kitten each time. So maybe you're going to stand 4 feet away from the kitten, and then the next time you're going to stand 2 feet away from the kitten, and then pretty soon you're going to be standing right next to the kitten while they eat. Really, the kitten is the one who sets the parameters for that, because you want to be as close as you can while still allowing them to feel comfortable enough to eat. So you're kind of like pushing them a little bit more each time to get more comfortable. Keep talking to them throughout the entire meal. They're going to get used to the idea that, okay, this lady comes in here and talks to me, and it's not my favorite thing, but I get to eat, and I feel relatively safe. Okay, so we're going to do that for the next sessions. After that, we're going to start getting a little closer. We're going to maybe hold the food or hold the dish while they eat. We can feed them on a spoon. We're going to be right up next to the kitten where they can really smell us and interact with us at that point, and we're going to keep talking to them. Then we're going to start introducing touch. While that kitten's eating, now they're okay with us being right here, but let's actually start touching them on, the chin. You can scratch the chin, touch the top of their head. You can take small steps towards holding the kitten. You'll see in the video I'm about to play that I'll take my hands and I'll slightly touch the sides of the kitten's body and then start practicing lifting the kitten. And they start to desensitize to all of these things. So they're not so scared of those actions anymore because, we're gently acclimating them. Then, from there, you want to continue taking baby steps for any new stimuli. So you never want to just shove something new in a feral kitten's face because things can be scary for them. Things like toys, if you go in there with a rattly toy and shake it in their face, that could be traumatic to them. They don't know what's going on. So slow and steady introduction of new objects and new activities will help them build confidence. And then, once that kitten is social, you also want to start introducing them to other people so that they know it's not just you who is safe, it is people in general who are safe. Okay, so let's put this all together. This is a really fun video where you'll see all of the things that I just discussed with this very, very, very feral kitten named Crabapple, and we'll see what happens with him. Here's Crabapple. Take a kitten from being super spicy to being mild and lovely. So my number one piece of feral kitten advice is you never want to free feed the kitten. Free feeding is when you give food freely and the kitten just eats whenever they want. But think about that from a kitten's perspective. In their mind, they've found food and they don't need a human to give it to them. So you want to feed the kitten with meals. And every time it's mealtime, it's socialization time. So at feeding number one, my only goal is to get him to eat in front of me. All right, so this is great. I've got him eating. So there he is, he's eating his meal. And here's me, and I'm just gonna hang out and talk to him the whole time. You could talk to them about absolutely anything. It doesn't matter what it is. The important thing is that they're just getting used to the sound of your voice. So, I can talk to him about my day. I can talk to him about what I had for breakfast. Now for this first meal, I don't recommend doing anything other than just talking to the kitten. Let them get used to the idea that now they're in a human home. Remember, these cats maybe have never even heard a human speak before. So this is really brave of them. So the goal is for him to realize that when he eats, I'm here and nothing bad happens to him. Slowly, he's gonna start to figure out that actually I'm not a bad guy after all.
You're doing great. Can I see if I can touch your head? Oh. Okay. You're okay.
There's the lifting I was talking about. You can hear him squeaking. He doesn't love it. He likes that though. And voila! Before you know it, your little kitten will have gone from wild to mild. Good job, Crabapple, you did it. Good job, Mr. Krabs. You're not crabby no more. Okay, so you could really see it all kind of coming together there. Okay, so a few more tips. You want to be very mindful of grouping kittens together. If you have one kitten who is really, really spicy and the other ones are not so spicy, you might want to separate that one kitten out. That will increase their feelings of dependence on you and their feelings of warming up to you when you're feeding them. You can reunite all of them once they are all socialized. With the feral mama situation, separate them as soon as they're weaned. Mom can definitely have an influence on her kittens, and she, doesn't need to be there once they are weaned. So after about 5 weeks, we're going to try to separate the kittens out from mom and really focus on socializing. Don't push a kitten so far beyond their comfort zone that it causes trauma. This is, it is a traumatic thing to kittens to go through something scary that is unfamiliar to them. So let's try to do slow and steady as much as we can. Never scold a kitten. That's just good advice generally, but don't, get mad at these kittens if they hiss at you, if they seem scared of you. Don't scold them. That's going to have the opposite effect that you want. And then really commit to working with them multiple times a day. Consistency is really important. This is not a kitten where you can just leave them with food and hope that they're going to warm up over the next couple weeks. You really do have to commit to working with them throughout the day. Now, it is also important that you are really just spending as much time with your kittens as possible. Again, we don't want to traumatize them. We don't want to scoop them up and squeeze them super tight and try to, get them to love us through force. But we do want to kind of cuddle with caution. And so in this video, you'll just see this kitten who's not super happy to be with me, but I've put him in a little blanket in my lap, and I'm just trying to really get him warmed up. In particular, because this is a kitten who's kind of on the upper end of the socialization window. This is like a 10 and a half, 11-week-old kitten. So we want to get him socialized as quickly as possible. So this is about sort of cuddling these kittens, but with caution. So while exercising caution, you do want to be touching them as much as possible. It's really important that they receive consistent physical affection while you are socializing them. You can see that Bass here really does not like this at first, but I've just cocooned him in a blanket and I'm making sure that he's receiving very frequent physical affection. So this one might sound crazy, but I promise that it works. This is the feral kitten wiggle. All you do is take the kitten, put them in your arms, and gently wiggle them back and forth, side to side. I have seen this take very tense kittens and relax them almost to a state of falling asleep. If you add petting to this and just keep at it, you might even get to hear them have their very first purr. Have the kittens with you as often as possible, giving them frequent exposure to human touch. Even when I'm just working on my computer at home, I always put one of the kittens in my lap or wrapped up in my shirt so that this can fast track them for kitten socialization. Okay, all right. So just a couple other little things to point out. Obviously give them a good high quality kitten food. You can give them a little brushing with something that gives you the ability to touch them without actually physically putting your hand on them. If you're concerned about getting bit or scratched, there are long brushes you can use. You can read books to them. Reading is a really wonderful way to socialize a kitten, not just with this book where you can actually learn how to do that, but any book that you're reading. And then even playing television or radio. If you're not home, you can put on some kind of human voice that's going to help them, even quicker, become social even quicker because they are, hearing human voices throughout the day. Now, with these cusp kittens, what I talked about with them, that they were sort of kittens who are on the upper end of the socialization window, I really want to encourage you to use your best judgment to determine if they can be socialized quickly for adoption or if sterilization and return is a better outcome for them. It really depends on, again, the specific situation and your available resources and your abilities. So we have to be realistic with these kittens, especially as they get to the upper end of that window. Now, when that window closes, some people say 8 weeks, some people say 10 weeks, some people say 12 weeks. I have 12 weeks here because I think that's really the upper limit in terms of most experts' recommendations for socializing versus sterilizing and returning. Now, at this age, it's going to be much more difficult to socialize these kittens, and so let's talk about that. What we want to do with them is we want to really route them quickly for whichever outcome they're going to have. Socialized kittens who are friendly, they're exhibiting those social behaviors, those guys we can route for adoption. We're going to try to get them vaccinated, sterilized, placed into homes as quickly as possible. Now, if they're unsocial and they are over 12 weeks old, these kittens in general, we're going to want to vaccinate, sterilize, and return to their colonies. Now, you might ask, why would we not try to socialize them? But there are some very good reasons for that. The first is that it takes longer to socialize a cat the older that they are, and in some cases you will not be successful at all with socializing an older kitten or an adult cat. So we don't want to end up in these unfortunate situations where people have a kitten or a cat for years and they're not able to make them social. It's traumatic to the human, it's traumatic to the cat. Neither party really wants to live with one another. It is traumatic to these kittens and cats to be in a human home. So we want to really focus on the populations where we know that they're only going to be going through that for a short period of time. We want to focus socialization efforts on animals who are prime candidates for a quick turnaround. The other thing is just a safety hazard. Handling a fractious kitten becomes increasingly dangerous as she grows. It's not something that we can really ask of people to do. And the time and resources that we spend trying to force socialization on an adult cat, for instance, I've heard people say, well, I took in a feral adult cat and it only took me 3 years to get them to let me touch them. And I think about how much I can do in 3 years, how many lives I can save in 3 years, how many lives one kennel in a shelter can save in 3 years. And there's no doubt that we want to be focusing our resources on the animals who are really likely to socialize quite quickly. And then the biggest reason for me, and I speak to this with the experience of over a decade of doing this, I do see all the time efforts fail, and then the kitten is in a potentially life-threatening situation, because what happens is if you try to force socialization on a kitten or a cat and it does not work, and they've been inside, removed from their colony for a long period of time, they're in a situation now where they can neither be adopted nor returned. It's not ethical to put them back if they have been away for a really long time, but it's also a concern to, you can't place them in a home. These kittens in this picture are a true story, something that I dealt with. They're 6 months old in this picture. They were 4 months old when they came into the shelter. This shelter had tried to warm them up, tried to make them social, but they were outside of that socialization window. They never warmed up, and the reason that I ended up being there was because these kittens were actually set to be euthanized because they weren't candidates for adoption. And so this is a big issue in animal welfare. We have to be realistic. If we're not going to be so successful in socializing a kitten, it is much more humane for us to sterilize and return them to their colony than it is for us to put them in an impossible situation where they can't have that and they can't have a home, right? So let's be realistic with our kittens. Let's focus on those kittens who are in, the window for socialization. We talked about the superhighway, but I put it in here again because I want to just keep saying all of these different scenarios that I'm setting. They're guidelines. They're not a rule. So whatever path you think the kitten might be on, it might shift depending on the situation. So just remember that, you take every single situation case by case, considering the condition of the cat, the age of the cat, the situation the cat is in, and the abilities of the community and of the finder. Okay, so we are wrapping up here, but I wanted to kind of close out by just saying, it feels sometimes like kitten rescuers, we are just the cleanup committee for this big mess, right? Kitten season is like a flood. It feels like a flood, and it feels like we're doing constant damage control. There's more kittens than we can all save. There's more kittens than our shelter system in the United States can handle, and we're all just doing damage control all the time, focused in on that small picture issue of kittens coming in from outdoors. But what it really feels like to me is like there's a hole in the bucket. You guys know that song, There's a Hole in the Bucket? That's what this feels like. Rescuing kittens without sterilizing the families where the kittens were born is like continually mopping the floor underneath a leaking bucket. It doesn't make a ton of sense unless we are simultaneously plugging the leak, right? We know that there is a cause and effect here. We know that there's a big picture problem as well as a small picture problem. And so it's very important that anyone who cares about kittens is also looking at the bucket, looking at the problem, the bigger problem, the cause. And so I just want to say, anytime that we're talking about kittens, we also want to be talking about sterilizing those community cats. We want to make sure community cats are being spayed and neutered and vaccinated and receiving their ear tip. And their ear tip is the sign that this cat is not going to be giving birth to any more kittens. Now, if you see a cat that has that, you can celebrate. I'm so happy when I see a cat that has an ear tip outside, because I know that's one block that's not going to have a bunch of kittens being born on it every year around kitten season. So, this really is a kitten prevention program when we're doing sterilization of community cats. It is a kitten prevention program. You see in the data over and over again these various shelters reporting huge drops in kitten intake, in kitten euthanasia. These are just 4 examples. There are a lot of success stories online that you can look up, but I can tell you with my own eyes, I've seen communities be totally transformed by focusing not just on the kitten issue, but also on the issue of sterilizing the community cats who live outdoors in our neighborhoods. So let's really try to have a holistic approach here. You can learn about trapping and sterilizing the cats in your community on my YouTube channel. I have several videos that will teach you how to trap and everything that you need to know. Unfortunately, I don't have time to teach you all of that today, but I would love if you would follow up and watch those at youtube.com/Kitten Lady. But the last thing I'm going to say is I'm going to talk about the program that my nonprofit has. We're called Orphan Kitten Club, and one of our programs is called Full Circle. We are a kitten organization, you guys. We're called Orphan Kitten Club. We really only focus on the issue of kittens. And yet we had to start a program that really addressed the problem of cats outside, because this is a full circle problem with a full circle solution. And so what we do as part of our program is every kitten that comes into our care, we ask for the address where they were found, and we return to that address, and we actually set traps and we sterilize all of the cats in that neighborhood. It is our promise to our kittens that we care for that they will be the last one to suffer on the street. They will be the last one to be born into these very tenuous situations. That is a promise that feels very good to be able to make to our kittens. And so in a full circle program, which anybody can start, what we do is gather information about the location of the surrendered kittens. We seek to reunite any orphans with mothers if we're able. We sterilize the colonies where the kittens have been rescued. So we return and we name every colony after the kittens. For instance, this was Rosemary's colony. Rosemary is a kitten we rescued, and she was a tortie who looked just like that mama cat. And we go there, and in Rosemary's honor, we go and we trap, and we make sure that we are doing that for the future, the big picture issue. It's a big picture approach to kitten rescue. And so if you are involved in rescue in your community, I encourage you to ask your municipal shelters or wherever you're getting your kittens, ask them to share the origin address with you so you can actually go and do this work. It's really important. This is our door knockers that we put on people's doors, and we let people know, hey, we're working with some kittens. I'll actually show people, pictures of the kittens and say, hey, we found these kittens in your yard, and I'm fostering them, and we're here because we'd like to help sterilize the cats in your neighborhood. If they don't answer, we have these little door knockers for them that are bilingual on each side. And the kitten who's on the door knocker is the kitten whose story I would like to end with today, because he was really the kitten that inspired us to officially make this program. This is Flapjack, and Flapjack was a little kitten who he had a brother, And unfortunately, his brother was in very bad condition and did not survive. But they came from a neighborhood where there were just kittens being born all of the time. And when I got there to help them, obviously I was very saddened by his brother's condition. I was very saddened by Flapjack's condition. And as we were there, we're looking around and there's just cats prancing on the tops of the buildings and walking on the fences and hiding under cars. And I was like, you know, what kind of a person am I if I just take this kitten home and I know that kittens are suffering here and I don't do something to stop it in the future. So we, you know, established a relationship with them, and we went back and I asked, you know, do you know who the family is? Do you know who Flapjack's parents are? And she points over to the fence and says, yeah, that's the parents, the Torty and the buff Papa. That's the parents. And so we felt that it was very important for us to start this program. And ever since, we have been able to do this with every single kitten that we have rescued. We go and we trap. So I want to end with this little video about Flapjack and his colony, and then I will take questions after that. But here is a video showing Flapjack's colony.
The community cats who live here are just kittens who were born in bushes who nobody came and rescued. We were able to stop that cycle for Flapjack by getting him into a home, but really ending the cycle for the whole family means coming back to the colony and getting everyone sterilized. So we've been able to locate the parents. We have eyes on the mama cat, who is a fluffy tortie, and the dad cat, who is a buff cat, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to catch both of them. The goal here is really to make sure that no more kittens are born in these bushes or under these cars. We want to get all of them sterilized so that we don't have more situations like Flapjack. That is Flapjack's mom, and she has had 3 litters of kittens already this year. Hopefully today we're gonna catch that cat and she will not be having any more babies in that bush. That's the dream. Hi, you got caught. Hi, oh, it's the little Smoke younger one. All right, so what's that, 3? Nice, we've caught 4 cats so far. That's pretty good. Okay.
Oh, she hefty.
She hefty?
She hefty.
She's eating well. We got the mama! Hi! This is the one who's having all the babies in the neighborhood. Yes! We know that she's had at least 4 litters of kittens and that most of the cats in this colony are her babies. Yeah, we gotta go get the dad now. Hey, Daddy.
Papa Jack.
We got him! We had to come back at nighttime to get you, but we got you. Yeah! He's like, oh, man.
No more babies.
Yep. No more babies for you. No more babies, no more balls. Come on! There you go, Mama.
If you're feeding cats who live outside in your neighborhood, please make sure you're getting them trapped, neutered, and returned. Don't delay. It's much easier to trap and spay 2 cats than it is to trap and spay 10, and it's much easier to do 10 cats than it is to do 20. So if you feed cats, make sure you're getting them fixed as well.
All right. So, you know, as you can see, it's all connected. There's many ways to be a cat. That's what I always say. There's many ways to be a cat, and all cats are worthy of protection and dignity, whether we're talking about feral cats, community cats, neonatal kittens, feral kittens, these little, you know, in-between moderately spicy kittens. All of them are worthy of protection and dignity. And the important thing is that we become educated enough to know what pathway does that specific animal need. What does a good life look like for that animal? Because it really does vary. And so this is why I think it's so great that we have these opportunities to learn and become educated about these issues so that we can be a stronger advocate for the the individuals and meet each individual where they are as an individual. Now, just like there are many ways to be a cat, there are also many ways to be a cat advocate. There's so many different things that you can do, and I wanted to end this webinar series by just saying, if you haven't found something for you in this four-part webinar series, there are so many other things that you can do to help cats. In addition to fostering or, trapping and helping getting cats sterilized, you can use just about any skill and resource you have to help cats, whether that is volunteering on site or making crafts like beds and blankets and toys for the cats at your shelter. If you have a car, you can get involved in transport, which is very important. If you run a business, you can get involved with your local organizations. You could join a board, policy and legal support, accounting services, whatever skill set you have, you can use it to help animals. And so if you've thought that this was interesting, but you're not really sure where you fit in, I want to encourage you to really ask yourself about, what your abilities are, what your skill set is, where you might be useful, because this community is a big community, and it needs to be an even bigger community. We need to involve as many people as possible. So every person has a superpower they can use to save cats. And I hope that somewhere in here you've been able to find yours. And if not, I can't wait to see what great work you do in your community with whatever your superpower is. I want to remind you that we have the past webinar recordings posted. You can see them at kittenlady.org/webinar, and these are the 3 subjects that we covered that you can watch. So go to that website if you'd like to see those. Now, at kittenlady.org/webinar, you're going to see a registration link for this talk, the Feral Felines talk. Please register for that webinar if you would like to receive a follow-up email after this with some additional resources. Another thing that you can do is look at my YouTube channel, which has lots of information. A lot of the things that I didn't cover that you might be asking about, I do have videos on, so youtube.com/kittenlady. I also have educational resources on my website, which is kittenlady.org. You can learn about kitten care, lots and lots of resources out there. And then again, Royal Canin, they have wonderful resources for kittens on their website too. Some great information about nutrition, about health with kittens of various ages and adult cats, of course. So check out their website as well. These are all the places that you can find me, guys. So if you don't follow me yet on social media, you can follow me at KittenLady on Instagram and on Twitter. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/kittenlady. Please, keep up with me. I'm always putting out new content, new educational information, and, showing really fun stuff like the kittens. And I think they might be waking up. So now it's time for questions. And I hope these kittens are going to do something to show us how cute they are. They've been asleep this entire time, but I think they might be waking up. And maybe if Andrew is listening, he can go in there with a little toy or something so you can see how these guys are doing. They're just precious. Those are my kittens, Spinach and Chickpea. And last week they were separate. We had 2 kitten cams, but this week they're together because they have become best friends. Okay, so let's see what questions we have. Okay, a lot of questions. So let's start here. What if you trap a cat and get them spayed but didn't realize that they had kittens? Can the mom still be with the kittens, or should the kittens be bottle fed? Okay, so if you trap a mom, and this happens, sometimes you trap a mom to bring her, or you trap a cat to bring them in to be sterilized, and you don't know until that cat has been anesthetized and their belly's been shaved, and then the clinic goes, oh, actually this is a mom cat, she's lactating. They're still gonna spay that mom, and the mom will still lactate after the surgery. So that's a big question I get a lot. Will mom actually still be able to nurse her young? Yes, she will. So you can return that mom as quickly as possible. You might also want to consider going out and trying to find those kittens. If the clinic tells you, hey, this mom is lactating, maybe you want to go see if you can find those kittens. And if you can't, then, return that mom right away. Of course, you can bottle feed kittens, but mom is always going to be the best one to care for them. Oh, look, our kittens are starting to, there we go. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew's playing with the kittens. And there's Spinach. I need to just make sure that I clarify. I don't clothe my kittens typically. Spinach is wearing a little sweater made out of a sock because she's recovering from chest surgery. So she has a congenital condition called pectus excavatum, and she had surgery on her chest. So please don't put a t-shirt on your kitten unless for medical necessity, like in Spinach's case. But her new shirt, which is made out of sock, says Duchess of Sassytown. It's really cute. I'll post a picture of her in it later. But the sock shirts have really been helpful for her in her recovery. Okay, let's do some more questions. I was always told to keep kittens with mom until they're 8 weeks old. Do you only take kittens away from mom at 5 weeks if they live outside? Yeah, so it's not really so much about them living outside as it is about if the mom is feral. So if mom is feral, which means, she's hissing, she is unsocial towards you, she doesn't want to be indoors, in those cases, it's recommended to remove the kittens younger, just as soon as they're weaned. And that's for a couple reasons. One is, we want to get our hands on those kittens so we can start socializing them. That's right when that socialization window is starting. Two is that mom really, she really doesn't want to be indoors any longer than she has to. So we don't want to, keep mom pent up inside if she no longer needs to be with her kittens. And 5 weeks is a good time to plan for that mom to be removed from the babies because that's right around the time that they should be starting to eat independently and starting to be a good age for warming up for socialization. Okay, oh my gosh, this is so distracting. Look at Chickpea. Chickpea, we call her Thick Pea because she's very, very rotund. Oh my God, it is distracting, you guys. I don't know if anybody's even listening to me anymore. Okay, let's see. What other questions do we have? How long did it take to tame Crabapple? So Crabapple, it took, a couple days. In most cases, if you have a kitten who's within that socialization window and you're really practicing all of the things that I recommended, if you're practicing all of those skills, it really should not take longer than a couple of days for them to warm up, but of course, case by case. But when people tell me, I've been fostering a feral kitten for 3 months, I'm like, oh boy, something is going wrong there. Either the kitten's not getting worked with in the right way, or maybe they are outside of that socialization window. But it really should only take, a couple days to maybe up to 2 weeks maximum. I don't think it's ever taken me that long to socialize. But yeah, 7 to 10 days probably is the upper limit of what I would expect to see in a kitten Crabapple's age. Yeah. Okay, let's see. A lot of people asking, will I be offering a session on working with the community cats? And I don't have that planned at this time. I do those talks live, so potentially there's an opportunity maybe in the future to do something webinar. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, but this series was really supposed to be focused on kitten care. So perhaps I will have an opportunity in the future to do some different types of webinar content, but I do have a lot of information, and this question specifically was asking about barn relocation. I have a video on my YouTube channel. I think it is called Fia Gets a Barn Home. I think that's what it's called. FIA was the cat's name. Fia Gets a Barn Home. If you look on my YouTube and look up Kitten Lady Barn Home, you should be able to find that video, and it shows kind of the right process for doing that, because you can't just take a cat and move them from one outdoor area to another. That's not ethical and also will not work. So you have to know how to do that very carefully. But I do have a video about that if that's something that you're interested in. Are there laws that protect community cats? Ooh, great question. This is something that I have been deeply involved with in the past. It's a real interest of mine. Yes, there are laws that protect community cats, but the issues that affect community cats tend to be at the municipal level. So municipal meaning like city or county. It's not typically state or federal law that's impacting community cats, although of course it really varies depending on where you are. I was just in Australia, and in Australia there are some federal laws that impact community cats, either for better or worse, you see laws. And so definitely if you're interested in this stuff, a really important thing to do is learn about advocacy. How do you do that? Political advocacy for cats. Certainly anyone who cares about kittens, if you've watched this talk, you know that by extension you should care about these community cats, and we want to have laws that not just protect them, but also help us, that enable us to do life-saving programs that will reduce the volumes of kittens outside. So definitely advocating for sterilization programs in your community is a great place to start. If you don't have those programs in your community, you can, write to your local representatives, whether that's city council or county commission or whatever your local government is. I used to not believe that local government was something you could impact, but you really can. You absolutely can. So, you can write to them and let them know, hey, I'm a concerned citizen. I care about, what's going on in my community with regard to kittens being born outside, and I want to advocate for ordinances and programs that protect community cats and ensure that they're sterilized. I think that that's a great thing to do. Okay, somebody's asking about if you don't have a sterilization program locally, how can you go about starting one? Well, anybody who ever says, I don't have this thing locally, what do? I always say, well, that program might not be there, but you're there. And if you're there, that's the first start. It's really concerned citizens who take action and organize together who are the ones that become the resource in the future. So if this is an important issue to you, I very much encourage you to find like-minded people in your community. You can, try to create a coalition of like-minded people who want to see these programs exist. And there's no end to the things that you can do together, whether that results in you starting a clinic or starting a 501c3 nonprofit, or simply just, doing monthly fundraisers to raise funds and education for the community about these issues. I think that the people who see the problems are the people who are best set to start solving those problems. So I love that you are thinking like a problem solver and you're wanting to start a program. I can't tell you quickly how to start a program for community cats, but I can say definitely tap into the larger community. There's a large online community that you can find and resources you can find for how to do that. But I wish you the best of luck with that, and I hope that maybe in the future there will be some more opportunity to talk in webinars about things like starting organizations, because I do have a lot of experience there I'd love to share. Okay, let's see if we can move on to one or two more questions. I have 2 feral mamas with kittens. Babies will be 6 weeks old next week and they're weaning. How long do I wait to get mamas spayed? I was told that their milk has to be dried up first. Well, I think that you should talk to the veterinarian that you are working with, and obviously you need to follow their protocol, and that's going to vary depending on the vet and depending on the situation. But that's not typical for a program. They should be able to be spayed in most community cat programs. They would be able to be spayed even if they were recently nursing. But again, we're all working within the abilities and resources that we have in our communities. So I would say, talk to your veterinarian that you're working with and find out when they would like you to bring them in. Okay, maybe one more question. Let's see. Wow, there's a lot of questions. Oh gosh. Well, I don't want to keep you guys here forever. Last week I talked way too long. I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's Saturdays. Let's see. There's so many. Okay. Do you have a recommendation for gloves for handling feral kittens? Okay, so honestly, they make something called bite gloves. The bite gloves are like really big gloves that are often like made out of a very, very thick material, and it goes all the way up your arm. And bite gloves, that's something that we do have on hand here, but it's hard to be nimble while wearing bite gloves because they're so thick. So for kittens, yeah, I would recommend wearing like a sweatshirt that has long sleeves, and then wearing maybe gardening gloves or something like that. It allows you to be a little bit more nimble, but still protects your hands. Let's see. Somebody's asking about ear tips. When you're tipping ears, is the right for female and the left for male? It would be nice if there were a universal symbol. Yeah, you know what? It would, but unfortunately everybody has to be unique. So in most of the country, and now I'm gonna, okay, let me make sure I'm getting this right. In most of the country, in most of the United States, the ear that is tipped is the cat's left ear. So if you're looking at them, their right ear. But in California, we do the opposite. I'm not sure why that is. But honestly, right or left doesn't really matter. What matters is just that it's easy to identify. So the ear tip is going to be about 3/8 of an inch. It's going to be a straight line. That's done painlessly while they're under anesthesia during their procedure. And that's a really good sign that they've been through the program. So yeah, it does vary. There's countries that do a different thing. They do an ear notch or something like that. So the important thing is just really being able to interpret what's going on. In the United States, it's always going to be an ear tip, but the side of the side that is ear tipped might vary. Oh boy. Okay, maybe I'll answer a couple more because there are just so many questions, and I just don't want it to end, you guys, because look at Spinach is being so cute, and I've had so much fun with this webinar series. I could just talk to you guys forever. How do you socialize in a shelter situation? That's a really tricky question. So, socializing feral kittens is always going to be most successful in a foster setting, and the reason for that is that you want them to be in a somewhat calm situation. You want them to be in a situation that feels very stable with like one person or two people who are working with them. That might be difficult to do in a shelter setting where it might be a little bit more chaotic. There's a lot of animals coming and going. There's different people working different shifts. So it is a little bit more difficult to do in a shelter situation, especially just because you have so much other work that you're doing. So it's not like shelters have an abundance of staff who can sit there for 20 minutes while that kitten is eating their meal and talk to them about your day and read them the newspaper. So I would say if you are working at an animal shelter and you're trying to socialize kittens there, I would highly recommend fast tracking those kittens for foster. And this again falls under that when I was talking about the CASA method and teaching people, about how to make judgment calls based on these various factors. Your abilities, one of your abilities is, do you have the ability to put them in a situation where they will warm up? Because if you don't, if you are just going to put them in a kennel and they might not actually warm up, then maybe those are not going to be kittens that we're going to track for socialization and adoption. We have to be really realistic. But if it were me, I would be putting out as much cute content of socializing kittens as possible. Like if you run a shelter social media or you have a marketing team, I would be putting out cute little hissy, spitty, kitty recruiting for fosters. You want to recruit those people so that you have people who can do that hands-on work, and then also make sure that they are trained to do it well. You can send them this webinar. You can get them a copy of my book. There's a lot of resources online. Make sure that people really have access to the information they need. Okay. What if you socialize a kitten, but they only get socialized to you, and when they go back to the shelter, they start from square one? Yeah, so this is why we want to have kittens, once they are social with us, we want them to become social with other people. So we want to start bringing in other people. Right now, that's harder because we're not having like parties in our houses during social distancing. But to whatever extent you can get kittens exposed to other people, that's a positive thing. The other thing I would say is, perhaps returning to a shelter is not going to be the best situation for them. Maybe they can return for spay, neuter, and then go back to the foster home and get adopted straight from the foster home. This kitten's been socialized in a foster setting, so that might be a more comfortable thing. Okay, all right, I promise I'm going to answer just one or two more. Let's see. Do you think that there are cat colonies around homes and we don't know it as no one in the area feeds them? That's an interesting question. Well, cats congregate around areas where there is a food source. So if you don't see cats and you don't see people feeding cats, then there could not be community cats where you are, and that's a thing that you want to celebrate, because that means that you don't have to do a bunch of work there. I should say that this isn't just something you do on your own block. You can really get involved in your larger community, whether that's near your workplace, near your school, in your friend's neighborhood. But if you do think that there might be cats in your neighborhood, a cat colony, certainly putting some food out is a good way to discover that. If you do that, I recommend doing that discreetly, in the backyard, not in the front yard. And I recommend only doing that if you really plan on sterilizing them, because, sometimes cat people are our own worst enemies. When you become the lady who's dumping 40 pounds of cat food in the middle of the road, you can actually start contributing to these issues. We don't want to be feeding without fixing, right? So if you feed them, fix them is what we always say, and that definitely applies here. Okay. I will end with this one. So the last question I'm going to answer is, I'm feeding a colony of cats, but one of them seems really friendly and lets me pet her. Should I try to bring her home? This is a really interesting question. So this absolutely falls under the CASA method for me. This is why I wanted to create that, so that we can talk about all of these various factors. And one of the really important factors is resources and abilities. If you find a cat outside and they're friendly and you want to take them home personally to your home, I don't have any problem with that. A lot of people adopt their cats off of the street. I would probably check them for a microchip, make sure that you're not taking a cat that actually is somebody else's cat. But if you want to personally adopt that cat, that's fine. What I would say is, if there is a cat outside and they're friendly, but they are also thriving in that community, they're in a safe situation, and you don't want to personally bring them in, I would not recommend bringing that cat, for instance, to the animal shelter, because we're actually making their situation worse in that case, because this cat already has a positive, safe outcome where they are. And so if you don't have the specific ability to take that kitten into your home, I would probably not recommend taking up a kennel in a shelter, for instance, with a cat who you found outside. So it all really depends. But oh my gosh, I don't want to block that, because look, now that's where the kittens are hiding now. Well, we can't end with the kittens hiding. Or maybe that's their way of saying, okay, we're done entertaining everyone. So yeah, I think this is the stuff of rescue, you guys. It is it's, as somebody who's trying to do education, it's really hard because, sometimes we want these simple answers. We want to say, if this, then this. But the truth is, all of us are doing the best we can with the resources we have, with the specific situation that we're in. And that is the essence of rescue. This is one reason that I think we all have to be kind to each other as a community, recognize that we're all working within different resources, within different abilities. I think that there's something to be said for recognizing everybody's doing the best that we can within what we're able to do. So I hope that this has been educational and helping kind of shine a light on what some of those factors are that help us make those decisions. I have had so much fun doing this webinar series with you guys, and if you have enjoyed it, please leave a comment letting us know what you thought of the webinar series. If you have things that you would like to see in the future, I'd love to hear it. If there are other ideas that you have, or I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, guys. I am self-quarantined at home here in California with all my foster babies, doing the whole hashtag stay home and foster thing. I hope some of you guys are doing that too. So I'll be here, and I'd love to know what else you guys would like to do together in the future. But I'll be wrapping up here. I just, again, want to say thank you so very much to Royal Canin. You guys have been an amazing partner on this webinar series. Wonderful team, great people, caring people, and I would not have been able to make all of this happen and make it look good and make it reach so many people without the expertise of Royal Canin. So thank you guys so much for doing this webinar series with me. And thank you to everybody who has participated. And I have got to go snuggle those girls now. So I'll post a picture of Spinach's new t-shirt. And thank you guys to everybody who has followed along. And I'll see you guys on social media. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.